So I am Tina Lawson, and I am here with my esteemed colleagues, Dr. Christine, what's your name? Kirsten Starosa and Tammy Cook. So we are going to spend the next hour with you focusing on systems change and the subtitle being Identifying Skills for College and Career Readiness. So let me just get a few obligatory slides out of the way and then we'll set the stage for the rest of the hour. So it's like we're all doing something together. Kristen's gonna push it forward.
And it's not going. There we go.
There we go. Okay, and so the first thing is our patent mission. You've seen this before. The mission of patent is to support the efforts and the initiatives of the Bureau of Special Education and to build the capacity of you to serve students who receive special education services. With our commitment, PDE's commitment to least restrictive environment, our goal is for each child to ensure an IEP team begin with the gen ed setting first with the use of supplemental aids and services before considering a more restrictive environment. And as I've learned more and more about this project, this is so in line with our commitment. So what we are going to do today, these are our objectives. We have two objectives by the end of this hour. We want you to start reflecting on your current practices in the area of college readiness. And we're going to introduce to you this really cool tool that not many people across the Commonwealth have any knowledge of. It's the Pennsylvania Career Ready Skills document. And we're going to tie that to the self-assessment that you'll be using through the Achieve project to tie this Pennsylvania Career Ready Skills along with the self-assessment of that you will be facilitating with you to help you in the areas of social emotional learning. And I'll explain more as we move forward. So what we're going to do, okay. So what we'd like you to do right now, if you haven't already, Kristen had sent out an email yesterday asking you to download these, but we're going to give you a couple minutes to do this right now. We want you to go into this link, and they have this link, right?
Correct.
Yep. And look at these documents. We're going to be focusing on the PA Career Ready Skills Continuum, which is page 12 of a larger document. And then you'll also see 3 documents in there that are the secondary school success checklist. We're going to be focusing most of our attention today on the staff checklist. So we're just going to give you a couple minutes. So we're going to move on and then just collect up those documents. We don't need them right for this instant because this slide's going to take a little bit of time. So I wasn't part of the project when it all first started, but my understanding, and Kristen can elaborate wherever needed, is that we focused a lot on individual students. And what was found was there were patterns, there were consistencies across the Commonwealth where there were areas of need that were consistent, that if we could beef those up a bit, instead of just focusing one student at a time, which is important, but we would be more effective with our time and our resources if we could say, okay, let's look at the bigger picture and what are the systems that overall we need to address to support staff behavior to implement the practices that we were learning on these individual case bases, and then what's the data to help us inform, are the practices working or not, and then are the staff feeling supported? So that whole idea of data systems and practices. So we wanted to just spend a little bit of time to orient you to systems work. And if this is something moving forward you'd like more, a deeper dive in, we can go into it. But for today's purposes, we just want to get everybody on a level playing field because we were so individually student driven before. And this is with Achieve's self-assessment document, we are looking not at individual students, we're looking at the systems that are supporting our students on the spectrum who are college ready or college bound. So the first area is usable innovations. So this is looking for a set of practices to help us achieve outcomes. And they are empirically proven to produce the results we need. I should have a glass of water. That was a tongue tie. I put lipstick on and I should have done that. It's an ongoing joke about that. So anyway, so what's the set of practices to address the need? And then, are they usable? Are they teachable? Are they learnable? Are they doable? So are these practices that can translate to people in order to be implemented with high fidelity? So we're first looking for our usable innovations. The next one is looking at our teams. And you're part of that team for this project. So think about, do you understand how to lead and effectively utilize your team energy to move this forward? You want to have a well-developed plan, which is what our self-assessment is going to help us to generate. And we want to set up accountable timelines and deadlines and document our progress so that we can say, here is what we want overall for kids on the spectrum we want to have them be college ready. And here's the plan we're putting in place, and here's the tool we use to help us establish where our needs are. The next one are the stages of implementation. So you're looking for, you have your innovations, you have your team. Now what are the stages? So in the stages that you're all in right now is exploration. That's when you're gathering up all the stuff you need in order to move something forward. The way it was explained, I thought this was a beautiful explanation about like when you're teaching your child how to ride a bike, right? So you have to collect up the stuff, the Band-Aids, the helmet, the right bike. You have to establish where the places that you're going to launch your child off onto the bike. So it's that idea of exploring, pulling all the resources that you need together. Then once you have everything, you're going to install. You're going to start utilizing these different practices, and you're going to have an installation phase. After that, you're going to start implementing, and then you're going to move into full implementation. So it goes from exploration to installation to initial implementation to full implementation. And that's just the stages of, or the ingredients for good systems change with regard to stages. The next are drivers. How can you innovate the competencies that you have? How can you engage your leadership? And there's leaders sitting on this call, and obviously you're engaged. You've been engaged for a few years, right? So this idea, you're the drivers, and then what's the organizational structures you're going to have in place? How are you going to communicate with each other and align your work? How is special education going to align their work with the gen ed teachers and the social workers and help support all of the people involved? And then how are you going to leverage all of these resources that you're pulling together? And then the final component of systems change is this idea of cycles. It's that idea of purposeful problem solving. We've implemented, we're looking at the data. How is the system reacting to the practices that we have in place? Are the staff feeling supported? And then we test out, and we're constantly improving. So when you look at this, we're starting at a base of using the Achieve self-assessment to say, where are we? Based on the individual student work that we've done over the last couple of years, here's where we're seeing, if we have these things in place, it helps more students, not just the one, but more students on the spectrum to be college ready. Anything you want to add to that one in regards to stages or the bridge between the project and the morphing into this phase?
I think your summary really highlights not only the process that we've been going through as a project in order to figure out what do schools need in order to support the students, but also highlights that, like you said, it's more than just helping that individual student. We want to help this group of students now and in the future. And so what kind of practices and systems and data do we have to put in place to make that happen?
Yeah, Kristen's taught me everything I know about systems, trust me. So, are there any questions? I'm going to pause here for a moment, and if Tammy could just let me know if there's any questions before we move on in regards to the direction of the project right now. Okay. If at any time something comes up, just stop me.
And I'm watching the chat box, so please, at any time, if you have a question, I will voice your question.
Okay, she'll kick me is code for that. I'll kick Tina and answer your question. So anyway, so let's first talk about this Achieve self-assessment. This is really exciting, groundbreaking work. And Kristen has really been at the forefront with our colleagues in the other two offices to establish this base reflection on what do we have in place. And the purpose of this is to help the LEAs, identify areas of strength and improvement in supporting students on the spectrum who are working towards college. So the first column talks about importance or relevance. This is to help us as we're playing around, and you guys are all playing in our sandbox with this, to say which of these questions moved your work forward to help us, am I getting this right? To help us to streamline this document, because this is a living, breathing document that we're going to be assessing and then hopefully be able to roll this out to larger audiences. The next one is measurement. I'll skip that for now and go to implementation level and priority rating. And this is really the heart of the matter for all of you. We're going to read the STEM sentence. Some of you have already gone through this process. We're going to read the STEM sentence and we're going to look at what's the proof of implementation or lack of proof, what level are we at, and then how does it rank as a priority. The second column is measurement, and we're still working out the kinks in that one. So, like we said, this is a living, breathing, groundbreaking document, and this is, looking at what are the areas that you're currently have in place and how are you measuring them. I don't know if Kristen, you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, like Tina said, this is very much a draft document, so we're collecting information. So the first two items are more information to help us know if you think the items on the document are useful, and then the last two items are for you to help evaluate your own practices and prioritize your own planning.
So I have to say, it's been exciting to be added onto this project and to see all the hard work that you guys have learned in these smaller groupings, and now how we can take that, bottle it up, and play around with it a little bit so we can launch it to help other LEAs who have this population of students, and we just don't know how to best meet their needs to get them ready, college bound, right?
Absolutely.
All right, so let's move to the next one. This is the unveiling of the PA Career Ready Skills. Now, if you're taking notes or if you downloaded this, you can put a little AKA social emotional learning, okay? So I'm going to look at my notes a little bit. These skills, this document is aligned but does not duplicate the Pennsylvania Career Education Work Standards. So when you see this, don't think of the standards. It's not the Career Education Work Standards. What happened was, I want to say about 8 years ago, business leaders came to the Department of Ed and said, hey, we've got workers who have skills to do the job, like technical skills, but they don't have the soft skills. Like, how do you work in a group? How do you self-advocate? How do you know if your relationship at home is having impact on the quality of your work, and how do you manage that and get the help you need? So what they came together, and Patton facilitated the conversation, and it came to our understanding that we needed to prepare our students to be 21st century learners. So when we were working on this project and talking about systems level, I was part of that project. I thought, why don't we share this new document with this small group and have you guys take a look to see how it might help you to better align your gen ed curriculum with these career ready skills that are also your soft skills, your social emotional learning. This provides a learning progression. So we're going to go to page 12. So if you have that, put that up. We're going to talk about that in a little bit. And I'm going to stop. I'm going to wait because I have a slide on that. But it's designed to direct the pathway and to employability, AKA college readiness. It helps to guide what curriculum we have in place and look at what soft skills we need to address more adequately. So what we're going to do is go to the next slide. I was jumping ahead on my slide, sorry. And this is one page out of a very large document. The document do they have access to the whole document?
Yes, the whole
Okay.
document is in the Google
We didn't want to
folder.
print and everything, but the whole document, it's 41 pages. And it's entitled The Pennsylvania Career Ready Skills, an introduction. And page 12 is really what we're going to use to organize the other checklists that we're going to be introducing in a little bit. So when you look at this grid, it shows you that the readiness skill categories are A, self-awareness and self-management, B, establishing and maintaining relationships, and then C, social problem-solving skills. Those are the overarching organizational categories. And then the rest of the grid is showing you the progression via the grade bands. So this is what it looks pre-K to K, this is what it looks like 1st to 5th grade, and on and on. So we're going to be focusing mostly in grade band at the very end, which is 9th to 12th grade, right? I'm on the right grade band.
Yes.
Always have to check in. Always need support. So I just also wanted to just give you a little bit more orientation to this actual document. When you download this document, like I said, it says career ready skills, but if you think of it more of the social emotional piece, and Pennsylvania doesn't have social emotional standards at this point, the Appendix A is this, which is the general explanation. Appendix B, if you want to write this down, it starts on page 13. It aligns the PA career ready skills with the Danielson model. So how does it, oh, you're wonderful. Look at her jumping right in there. So, and there's more under explanation. So this is B. So with B, it's aligning it to the Danielson framework for teaching. And then if Appendix C, which is probably where you're going to get more into later on, not necessarily today, but as we move forward with this project, on page 19, this takes the career ready skills on the left and aligns it with the career CEWs.
Career Education Network.
Thank you. ELA, social studies, family, consumer science, health, safety, and physical education. And you can see it's showing you how, and we're going to give you time to look at this, how it all aligns and where self-awareness is hit with the different standards that we have available to us now. So it really is a hidden gem. If you're going to the PEE conference, I will put out a plug, Pam Emery, look for Pam Emery. She is the lead author on this document. She will be presenting this document and where we're moving with this project forward. They're working on a toolkit. Now you're saying, okay, so this is more gen ed. How does this relate to our work? Well, when you're, get this, we gotta go back to the slideshow. I'm overdoing the technology here. Okay, we'll come back to this, 2 seconds. I just wanted to make this connection. Making connection. When you're looking at the self-assessment, there are certain questions on the self-assessment that maybe you're like, I don't know how we connect this in our gen ed curriculum. So now you can take a look at, here's the gen ed standards, here's the career ready skills, and where they intersect. I took a little bit of time to look at the Achieve self-assessment, that is this living, breathing document, and I looked at like question 5. Our school has assessment resources to address the following areas: self-advocacy, self-awareness, organization and planning, study skills, social skills, and communication. So if you now could look at the career ready skills and say, here's where it links up in the gen ed curriculum, here's where we might be able to do it, then you can also kind of back map and say, well, what assessments do we use in those areas? The other thing that is throughout the document itself, the original career ready skills, it's talking about these should be infused throughout. It's not do a separate training on these things, but it should be part of your gen ed curriculum, which is where we're seeing a lot of our students who are on the spectrum and college bound. So that's why we thought that would be beneficial. The next part is our school has instructional resources to address following areas. Same thing I just read. So what are the instructional resources? Again, instead of thinking, well, what do we have? Or, well, we want to have some kind of proof about it. So use the career ready skills document to go back and back map. Did we lose people?
Chris says her Google Docs are getting difficult.
Chris, we will put them in timeout. And then we'll make sure that we, it might be people getting in at the same time. Sorry about that, Chris, but we'll, technology. I mean, we're looking at ourselves on the screen. We've got this screen. We've got lots of stuff.
And as long as you have that bit.ly link, that folder is not going anywhere. So you can access it once we all get out of it.
I'm just excited they actually want to look at the stuff.
Yes.
So let's go to the next achieve slide. So the next area of the assessment, for those of you who have already gone through it, you're like, oh, why didn't we know this before? Well, this is a living, breathing, morphing process. So the next area is 21. The school has identified plan with coursework, identified strategies and resources and assessment tools for analyzing data to guide students' their participation in IEP meetings and other self-advocacy skills. So that links up with the continuum. What are the skills that you need to look at, and what areas of our gen ed curriculum are already promoting that kind of self-advocacy? And then the last one, the school has provided training and follow-up support as well as instructional assessment resources for teaching self-advocacy, self-awareness. There's a plan of how and when to teach. Hello, we've got the career-ready skills, right? It's not the end-all be-all, but it's going to help you guide some of this work on your self-assessment. So if you scored yourself as it's not there, we currently measure yearly or we never measure it, well, maybe you actually are because your teachers have infused it already in the gen ed curriculum. And that's what's cool about that document. So my final slide, and then I'm turning it over to my esteemed colleagues here. In our system, when we're looking at the self-assessment, we're asking the question, is our system ready to support essential practices? And what do we teach? The PA Career Ready Skills Continuum helps us tap into that gen ed curriculum and the standards that the gen ed standards that we already have in those different areas. And then we're going to move into
my part,
which is
so the secondary school success checklist. So when Tina brought the PA Career Ready Skills to our group, we were like, oh, where has this been all our lives? It was really helpful. And if for those of you who have been on the project multiple years, self-awareness is something that we've talked about consistently. Social problem solving is something we've talked about consistently. So all those areas are things that definitely meet the needs of all students and also meet the needs of our small group of students on the spectrum who are seeking a college degree. Maybe even our own selves, we could find areas of need and strength on that continuum. So it's a great tool and it covers a lot of what we needed. And in additional research for this webinar, I came across the Center for Secondary Education for Students with Autism. And I found that they have 3 checklists. They call them their secondary school success checklists. There's a parent version, a staff version, and a student version. And those are all in your Google folder in that download subfolder. And if you Google secondary school success checklist, it's one of the first things that comes up. So it's easy to find again, even without that folder. But what I found that these do, and when I found them, I'm like, wow, we're kind of, all these pieces are aligning to each other because a lot of the skills in there really overlap and further define and further focus the skills identified on that PA Career Ready Skills Continuum. So in the next slide, we're just gonna take a minute to look at each one of those versions just to kind of orient you to it, and then we'll give you a couple minutes to explore on your own. And again, as Tina, Tammy and I were putting together this webinar, this is really just to introduce you to these tools, and we're hoping that you'll take more time in your teams and schools to work on them. So the first one we're going to look at is the staff version because it's the most complete one. We always give teachers the most work to do, so it has the most items on it. And for those of you who have been in this project for multiple years, you may be thinking about the surveys that Jane had us fill out for each student, and I think you'll see some overlap with those surveys as well. But on this first staff checklist, the staff rate an individual student and they answer 2 different questions. So where is the student, how does this item compare to the student that I'm filling this form out for? And then is this a concern or is this a priority for instruction and assessment and additional work? The document is organized in domains and subdomains, and kind of pay attention to these names and these letters, because Tammy will be talking about a document in a little bit where these letters will just kind of help you find things within the document. But so domains like independence and behavior with the subdomain of organization, you can just kind of scan through these individual items. Uses tools to keep track of assignments. You know, that's something that we talk about all the time. Requesting or initiating meetings with work groups or staff as appropriate. Those are all good skills. And even though these checklists are called secondary school success checklists, I think when you look through these items, they're things that we're talking about for college readiness as much as we're talking about for high school readiness. So regulation of emotion and behavior, again, a lot of important skills like engaging in self-calming and coping strategies. Anything on the chat box?
Hillary was sharing, I think where there may be some need is when these skills are the hidden curriculum and not necessarily explicitly taught and or reinforced. So these may need to think systematically about where these students can be given more direct instruction and or opportunity for practice.
Yeah, absolutely. So just like the self-assessment is having us look at our school system and these PA career ready skills in concert with these checklists can help us look at the individual student level. But yesterday when we were talking about this webinar, Tina brought up the point of always kind of thinking back to that systems piece. So not only would, you know, if your school likes this checklist and thinks that it's helpful, it's a great start to say, okay, we want to use this with students, but there's a lot of kind of thought and question that goes into, well, how are we going to use this with the students? And also, not only how is this going to be helpful for the student, but can we take a look across students? You know, does all the students who are completing this form, are there deficits in self-regulation of emotion and behavior? And what does that tell us about what kind of support we're providing, and that maybe we have to bump up support in that area? So we want to always kind of be looking at both that individual level, how can we help the student that's in front of us now, but also how can we look at the system and how these tools can help inform our practices.
And the other thing, you know, going to that, is that maybe there's a subgroup of students that need us to look at a social skills curriculum and actually look at evidence-based curriculum that might be added to their programming. But until we know, like we want to look and see, are there groupings of students that have similar needs that maybe the gen ed, identifying it more in gen ed isn't just enough, like you said, Hillary. Yeah.
And what these tools, and like I said, you know, we'll give you a minute to look through them. I'm just kind of scanning through the different subcategories so you can see them. It goes into transition and problem solving, goal setting, personal presentation, understanding of the school. There's a social domain. Again, these are, specific for students with autism on the autism spectrum. Again, a lot of these behaviors, lots of high school kids need, but this was specifically designed for our population. And what it does nicely is just really gets down to a very discrete level in terms of the behaviors. The last section is there's an academic focus, and not academic like, you know, do you know when the War of Independence ended, but academic.
It did.
I'm not sure. Somewhere somewhere in the 17. But academically focusing on comprehension and how kids take in information and analyze and output that information. So it's got that academic literacy focus. So that's the staff version. I'll just quickly go to the parent version. I'm not going to go to because it's very similar to the staff version. It may be a little shorter. The student version, I'm just going to open up and give you a look at it because it is shorter. Again, the two main categories of how this applied to me, and then is this a priority for me? And it takes the items that were on the staff and parent version, but simplifies it and cuts it down in number pretty significantly, and asks the students to self-assess. But again, even looking at this, we can look at it in terms of the individual level and all the questions. So what's this going to do for the individual student, but also how are we going to fit this into our system? So the school has to think about if this is something we like and we want to use, when are we going to use it? Are we going to start it in 9th grade? Are we going to do it every year? Which teachers are going to be responsible for this? How are we going to use the form and then have it only be mentioned in the present levels and the transition grid? We want to have it be an active part of how we do assessments and how we do instruction. So there's that individual focus and then that system focus. So Tammy, I'll just pull up the aligned document and you can talk to it. Okay.
And they have access to this too.
Yes, this is also in the folder and achieve draft alignment between, so that title up there.
So with the idea that you will or have already completed the data collection from the Achieve self-assessment document, and then investigate the use of the PA Ready skills as well as the
SSSC.
The SSSC, the secondary school success checklist, to then gather specific information and use it to develop an action plan that will lead to systems change and a more robust supports that ensure students are obtaining the skills needed for success after high school. When we went through this document, what you will look at, if you have page 12 from the PA Ready skills, career ready skills, you'll notice that the first item that has a capital letter aligns with the category in the far right column.
Right there.
And then the lowercase letters relate to, again, page 12 of the PA Career Ready Skills, the 9th to 12th grade band. Underneath of that, you'll see the alphanumeric coding that corresponds with the various domains and subdomains for the SSSC checklist. Just going through, I'm not going to go through item by item, but we can give you a couple minutes to review the document that we created. And, for example, O2 relates to organization, the second item in that subdomain. SR is for self-regulation and emotion and behavior. F relates to, I'm going too fast for Kristen, I'm sorry.
That's right. No, I got you.
We're testing her skills.
Yeah. F would then fall under the flexibility.
We're testing Kristen's flexibility.
And I'm not doing so well, but yeah, so just to go back to the secondary skills checklist, O2, the O2 on that alignment document is O2 on this secondary school success checklist.
So what you'll see is that underneath of the PA ready skills, there are multiple items on the checklist that cross the domains and subdomains. And what we're really hoping is that you can then use this document as a cross-referencing tool that will then help guide your decision-making as you implement the changes that you want to make for, again, creating a more robust program for your students. So I'll give you a couple minutes to scroll through the document to see how, again, it crosses the various subdomains.
And again, this is in the folder right here. Oh, there's the highlight.
And there you go.
Proof she did, social proof, she did it.
Sorry about that. But that, yeah, that just highlights what Tammy was saying, is that the things in yellow are the PA career ready skills, and then the bolded items are from the checklist. Sorry, Tammy.
Yeah, I mean, you could essentially take the checklist and circle all the items on this document and then notice that, you know, how it correlates with the PA career ready skills, and then go back to the self-assessment that you had already completed. So in summary, by using the Achieve self-assessment along with the PA ready skills continuum and the secondary school success checklist and other resources to take a comprehensive look at your current programming through a top-down and bottom-up model, then you can, again, create the systems change and the robust tools that your students need for becoming successful after high school. And looking at the strengths of your program and then filling in the gaps where maybe you need to focus.
So you can really see where you're at the beginning phases of implementation change in the exploration, gathering up your resources, and these are just some ways we're trying to help you support that.